Welcome to Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches. I'm Richard.
Yes. I'm Noah.
And he needs to get into his zen zone for this one.
This one specifically.
Because I surprised him this week, and I said, hey, let's do Justice League. Now, we live, I don't know how many miles apart.
Yeah.
I did not hear the screaming, so it couldn't be that bad.
My wife was locked in the bedroom, just, cleaning and doing laundry and just in her zen place. Because we watched, or at least I watched, I don't know which version you watched. There's 4 versions of this movie.
Well,
you know that?
You know what?
You know that?
You asked me which version, and then I had to take
Netflix was no help.
Pictures of which one that I watched. It's kind of ridiculous that there's 4 versions of the same movie. I watched a 2017 2-hour cut by Zack Snyder.
Okay.
It was on Netflix. I saw it. I started it because you've started me on the DC universe, and I think we could rename this entire channel to Millennial Son gets his Gen X dad caught up on everything he's missed in the last 20 years, because that's
Yep.
But I sat down and I watched this movie, and I liked it. And I liked it for it did everything that I've complained the DC movies haven't done.
Okay.
For me, it hit all the right beats. But as I was watching it, I realized I'm the average moviegoer when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
I haven't read all the comic books. I don't know all the storylines. I don't know everything. And so Wayback Machine to probably our second video we ever made. Has the nature of watching movies changed?
Yep.
And now there is this expectation. The fan base is so heavily invested into source material, that a movie maker can't just tell a story if they're basing it on something that has such a rich and varied background as the comic books.
Yeah.
And they have to be a master of those. And if they're going to pull threads from different comic series, they have to weave it perfectly, or there's going to be hell to pay from the fan base.
Yeah.
And I'm not encumbered by any of that.
You just gave me a new video idea. So, we'll have to do at some point.
Well, so I've been thinking about this in the last day since I finished watching the movie, because I think, I don't know, if you choose to make one of those movies, then you choose to take the responsibility of weaving it perfectly. Yeah. And so many people drop the ball.
Yes.
Okay, and in a variety of different ways. Script writing, casting, the whole bit. I don't think that this was even close to being a perfect movie. There were moments that were cringeworthy. There were things I didn't like about it. But for the most part, it hit the right beats. Specifically, comedy was used much the way Marvel has mastered this.
Okay.
With the exception of the Thor movies.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For anybody who's watched. Comedy is used very nicely at key moments to relieve the tension, but it doesn't distract from the story. It doesn't. So. Superman comes back to life, and he's standing, and he's holding off 4 people, right?
Yes.
And Flash is running around him.
Yeah.
And that fantastic side view as everything slows down, and you see the look on Flash's face like, no one has ever seen me do this before.
It's impressive, yes.
I watched... So I'm going to go down the rabbit hole of the slow motion. Wonder Woman drops her sword. Yeah. She dives after it. Right? The laws of gravity. She's not going to catch up to the sword.
No.
Flash is running around. He reaches out. He hits the tip with his finger and sends it back to her so that she's able to grab it. those slow motion sequences were really cool. They were nicely done.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm moving it over here. I don't know who could possibly. Yeah, it's nobody important. So sorry about that. So little beats like that hit very, very nicely. I wasn't sold on Flash being quite as syndrome-y as he was, and like
yeah,
kind of
okay,
autistic.
okay,
right?
yeah.
I really would have preferred that the actor who did Flash in the television series be cast in the role.
Wouldn't we all?
Okay,
yeah, wouldn't we all?
And it doesn't help that Flash's actor has such a nasty public image and background
right now,
in real life. But it was doable, right? It was serviceable. It was good to see Henry Cavill back as Superman.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sitting here.
So
I'm still trying to figure out which version you watched, because again, 4 versions of this movie, too many. You've got So, do you know the history behind why there's so many different versions of this movie?
We talked about it on camera back when we did Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah. Okay, so real quick refresher for those who have either missed out or just need a refresher. Zack Snyder started making the DCEU. He made Man of Steel. He made Batman vs. Superman, and he was the executive producer for like most of the other movies that came out. Although Warner Brothers didn't know what the hell they were doing with this franchise, so they kind of let other people take it in their own directions. He started Justice League, and then there was I want to make sure I'm getting this right if I can. I'm pretty sure his daughter died, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I know there was a family emergency. I believe it was the death of his daughter that pulled him away from filming. And Warner Brothers, the asshats that they were, instead of saying, "Yeah, bro, go take the time you need,"
right,
they said, "No, we have a schedule to keep." So they hired Joss Whedon
to come in
and finish making it. So all of a sudden, you've got a dude who's very well known for his specific style of movie making. Love it or hate it, Zack Snyder. I sit on the fence when it comes to Zack Snyder. Love it or hate it, he had a very particular style.
Okay.
And then you bring in Joss Whedon, who's pretty much the exact opposite. Joss Whedon, who directed the first 2 Avengers movies.
Okay.
And you get him to come in and try to finish making the movie with a clashing vision.
Okay.
So Joss Whedon comes in and he has his idea for how this is supposed to go. Now, then Justice League releases. It's got all this baggage. People aren't really happy with the studio in general, and they don't like the tone that it's going for. The Snyder fans aren't happy. The people who normally would enjoy a movie in Joss Whedon's tone aren't happy because it's a conflicted vision of a movie. And then eventually Zack Snyder gets the ability to take all the footage he ever shot and compile it into a 4-hour run of Justice League.
Yeah, I would never go watch that.
I think we should. Because it is a completely different viewing experience.
4 hours?
4 hours. You can break it up. And then they released, I believe, if I'm thinking about it right, I'm wondering if the version you watched is a trimmed down version of Zack Snyder's Justice League. What color was Superman in his baby blues? Was he wearing a blue and red suit?
Yeah.
When he came back?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. I think that
not the Christopher Reeve bright blue and red.
No, yeah, because in Zack Snyder's cut, he comes back wearing a black and white suit.
No, it was not black and white.
Yeah. So he comes back wearing the black suit. He came back as black suit Superman. And which was a change in post, if you don't know. That was a change in post. That was all CGI, by the way. That was not his original vision.
Speaking of Superman coming back,
and then they released, I believe, a black and white version of it, and then I think there's a freaking Zack Snyder director's cut version, and so I don't know what version you watched. I know I watched the theatrical run.
Anybody in the director's world check their ego out of the equation? You know, if I'm hired to complete a movie that another director started, but he had a tragedy and he had to step away, my focus would be, okay, what was his vision and how can I try to complete that vision as well as possible? As opposed to, I got a different vision. We're gonna do this my way. You know, I'm like, that drama is just, oh my goodness. Anyway, studio dogs.
Studio dogs are barking at something.
So
outside.
I am absolutely sold on why is the actor's name just escaping me at the episode? Batman.
Ben Affleck as Batman.
I am sold on Ben Affleck as Batman.
I think the two best things to come out of this franchise were Henry Cavill's Superman and Ben Affleck's Batman. I'm sorry. Ben Affleck's Batman. Zack Snyder got in trouble for talking about how he wanted Batman to kill. I'm going to go stop those dogs real quick.
When I first heard that Ben Affleck was cast as Batman, and I said this, previously, I wasn't sold on it. I am completely sold on it because his character development is obvious.
Yes.
He's not a static character. I really like it. Batman learning that he needs to pull a team together and depend on other people is important. Batman is showing vulnerability. What Bruce Wayne is. You're right. He went from thinking that Superman was this villain he needed to be able to stop to realizing Superman was necessary for their survival. And a
guy like him.
Yeah, and so
he has people he cares about. He's not an omnipotent being.
Yep, and the fact that he brought Lois Lane, that he had the foresight to realize, we're going to bring this all-powerful being back to life. There's going to be this moment of confusion.
That was a good moment.
It was a very good moment.
And here's the thing about this that and I'll be honest with you, I prefer the 4-hour cut.
Okay.
For a few reasons. Particularly because I think everything that was done well in the theater cut is done better. Because now it's very Zack Snyder-y. And Zack Snyder fans don't mistake this act of kindness for, I love Zack Snyder. I have a lot of issues with Zack Snyder. But I think it's better because it's a more unified vision, first off. And because of the 4-hour runtime, it takes more time with each of those beats. Now, it is a more depressing film, especially at the beginning. It is a much more bleak film. Like, you get that montage at the beginning of the theater cut where people are, going crazy because, there's no Superman and, people are kicking over fruit stands and terrorizing everyone else. But they go into that more. He does self-indulge in his cut where it's even more bleak and depressing in the 4-hour cut. But there's more time for the characters to have longer conversations about the dilemmas they're facing. I think there's the scene with Flash and Cyborg digging up Superman's grave.
I love that comment. I could do this faster by myself, but
I think in the longer cut they give it just a little bit more time to talk about themselves. If I'm remembering correctly, they compare each other, they compare themselves. They talk about their experiences, and it's a little more bonding. So there's better aspects to the 4-hour cut. Now I do believe that a 2-hour cut of that movie would be better, just because I like the unified vision a little bit more.
Okay.
But you also get more background on Cyborg, which I think is crucial because he's kind of he feels off in the original run.
Okay, the presentation of Cyborg in the movie version that I watched was rushed.
Yeah.
In terms of explaining his backstory. In fact, there was a tremendous amount that was missing from his backstory.
Yes.
However, they did a very nice job in the version that I saw of showing him as, one, not a threat, and two, struggling with all of the changes that were taking place.
Yeah.
But that character was a good character, right?
Yeah, I think really how you can summarize this whole franchise, really, because this is kind of where the DCEU died. I'll be real. Everything after here is kind of loosely connected. Like the big overarching plot of Zack Snyder's like plan for the DCU kind of died with Justice League. Because you had Man of Steel. Man of Steel led into Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman was tied to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman and all that tied into Justice League. Suicide Squad had a cameo from Ben Affleck's Batman and has nothing to do with the rest of the franchise. Yeah. You know, the Aquaman came out after Justice League. If it wasn't Jason Momoa playing Aquaman, it'd probably just be its own thing. It really
gotcha.
The Flash is the Flash, and Aquaman 2. Well, no one cared about Aquaman 2 because of Amber Heard, and Shazam is so out there that it doesn't even count.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. You mentioned the Flash. My mind is going in a million different directions.
That's kind of the issue I have with this franchise. It did go in a million different directions.
Batman shows leadership that you don't expect from a loner. And this is one of the things that I found interesting, because the Flash starts having his freak out. What do I do? What do I do?
I think that was a great moment.
Batman says, save one person.
I think that was a great moment.
It was a fantastic moment.
I think that was a fantastic moment. I don't know which director that was, but that was a fantastic moment.
It was a great
moment. That was a great moment. That's the thing. There's moments of greatness throughout this entire franchise. There are good moments throughout this entire franchise. And it just it pains me that the whole thing couldn't have just been good. You know, like overall, like there's so much hit or miss within this franchise that I'm just like.
But I'm not looking at the franchise. I'm looking at this one movie going experience.
I can't because it's trying to be a franchise, and because a movie like this, it did its best with what it had. But I'm just sitting here thinking, man, I would have loved to have actually had a solo Ben Affleck Batman movie before this came out. I would have liked to have seen more of Cyborg's backstory.
Yes.
I would have liked to have seen, you know, maybe not necessarily Flash's backstory, but I would have liked to see Flash get incorporated somewhere else, you know, before he got introduced. You know, I would like to see a little bit more of this. You know, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more setup before the Justice League payoff, because I'm just looking at this and I'm like, you've got so much potential here, but you fumbled. You fumbled on the 1 yard line, you know? Like, you know. Seahawks should have ran the ball, you know?
my big complaint, the most difficult part that I had with this movie, every time I heard the villain's name on camera, this is what came to mind. Now, so that we don't have to...
I'm going to have to, copyright that.
So we don't have to pay royalties. We'll keep it under 10 seconds, but I keep hearing Magic Carpet Ride every time I hear the name Steppenwolf. And I was like, really unfortunate, because he was kind of an interesting character. He's a very cardboard, I'm going to end the universe character.
Better in the 4-hour cut.
Really?
Because they actually explain who he is and where he's coming from. Because Steppenwolf...
Did they give him the Thanos treatment?
No, because he's not Thanos. That's the thing. He's not Thanos. Imagine if you had a movie, an Avengers movie, where the Squidward, the telekinesis dude from Avengers Infinity War, was the threat. And then at the end of it, you see Thanos, and they see a glimpse of Thanos, and realize that this dude was just that guy's herald. This dude was just his bodyguard. This was his servant. And you struggled to take him down. Imagine if that was... Imagine if that's what Steppenwolf is. Because the Thanos of DC is a guy called Darkseid.
Ah, okay.
Dark, S-E-I-D.
Well, the only thing I meant by the Thanos treatment was, do they give Steppenwolf a background that you can at least understand where he's coming
You know
from.
that big battle scene where they explain that he failed? Well, they actually show that wasn't just him wanting to dominate the world. No, he is a like Silver Surfer.
I was about to say Silver Surfer.
Kind of. Well, he conquers planets for his boss, and this was the first time he failed. And his boss is only giving him another chance, essentially because he's so good at conquering worlds. But this is his last chance. This is his last opportunity. And I liked that better. I like the villain better in the 4-hour run because they do give him more time. And he's also more brutal. Like, there's also I'm just sitting here listening out the differences. Because there are, if we talk about the 4-hour cut, I'll rip into the 4-hour cut. Don't worry, I'm not just, but the like, when he arrives on the Amazon Island,
right,
and they do the whole seal thing,
right,
that feels so out of place in this cut, in this version of the movie. They're like sealing themselves away. In the Zack Snyder,
it was rushed.
Love him or hate Zack Snyder. All right, I'll tell you what, he's very good at portraying desperation and despair in kind of that horror of the mind way, because in the 4-hour run, they make it like we are sacrificing ourselves to stop this world-ending threat.
Okay.
They are sealing off the gates. There's more time focused on it. It's a little self-indulgent, but there's more time focused on it, and you feel like these Amazons are actually like jumping on a grenade.
Okay.
Like that's how they are trapping themselves with a horrific monster that they have no hope of defeating. He's very good at portraying that, and they do it better in the 4-hour cut. So that's really where I struggle with this movie, is because having seen both versions, I'm just kind of like, man, there are things that this version does well that I like, and then the 4-hour version fumbles a lot and is overly depressing at times. But there's things that it takes the time to do well.
Okay.
And I'm just like,
well,
I'm so conflicted over this movie, this franchise. I can't separate it. I can't turn it off. I can't. I'm you now. I can't consume the content.
Okay, I get it.
Normally I can, but I can't with this franchise. I just can't consume the content.
I figured that if I did anything, I would surprise you with my reaction.
Yeah.
To the movie.
I'm a little surprised.
All right.
Although I'm not, considering
I might be softening just a little bit. Who knows?
Well, I mean, considering your perspective of I'm not tied to comic books, which I'm not tied to DC that much, but I'm tied to the comic community.
So I texted him. I finished watching. Well, actually, I surprised you by saying let's do this one.
Yeah, you surprised me by
probably surprising you that I like it. You texted me yesterday, I'm suffering through Justice League.
Yeah.
I knew that. So for the average...
You also wasted a very charismatic performance by Jason Momoa. I feel like he was wasted in this. And I also think Aquaman is the wrong character for Jason Momoa. And if he ever gets the role that I want him to get, I think it's a better fit for him as an actor. And that's Lobo. And I will have to explain Lobo to you off screen.
Okay. I thought that Aquaman was a little bit wasted. I don't know much about the Aquaman character. I figured all of his power came when he's in the water, but he can do things on land that are just, spectacularly acrobatic.
They they cast a cool guy Jason Momoa to improve the Aquaman image, because Aquaman's kind of got that, like, he's goofy, he wears green pants and a bright orange, he talks to fish. They even make the joke in the movie, I hear you talk to fish, and it's like, well, he's more than that. He is a powerhouse. He's, he can, on land, he can still punch. He's essentially a demigod,
Okay. All right, so
but
reeling us back into the movie a little bit. I liked the movie. I just did. It's a casual. In this one, I represent the casual moviegoer.
Okay.
I am not invested into the backstories at all. I think watching it helped me understand what I explained earlier, in this video.
Mm-hmm.
And I say if you are the average moviegoer, this movie should be fine. Whether they follow up on it or not, Gal Gadot gives a fine performance. I didn't see anything that she did that was objectionable. Batman is brutal with her. Brutal with her on her past.
Yes.
It was kind of, verbally, he really kind of slapped her around a little bit. And
man, I think Batman's the best. Batman and Superman are the best parts of this whole freaking little mini universe that they had going on.
They've done those two well.
I'm convinced Ben Affleck is one of the best Batman we've ever gotten. And I think I think the drastic change this movie made him a little too like easygoing. I think he switched a little too fast. Like he went from being like basically a true full-on psychopath, like he's branding people to get them killed, to what's your superpower again? I'm rich. Right. And it's like, okay, I don't dislike it. I think if there was a movie of pacing to like ease him down to that, I think that was
a good joke. It was just a joke.
It was also an obvious joke. It's not the joke that makes me mad. It's the that joke. It's the attitude that joke kind of represents in Batman.
So this is an older Batman.
Yes.
Okay, this is a Batman who's really starting to feel the mileage. This is a Batman who has to go through the. Here's where I would like to have seen more time spent on his story. Was the aging process and how he comes to realize he can't do it all alone anymore.
Yeah.
That would have been fun to explore that just a little more deeply. But I guess what I'm saying is I identify with this Batman in the coming to realize through the aging process what you can't do anymore.
I think that's a great story arc. I think the whole adage of you can't teach an old dog new tricks would have been a better like mental story arc to go through as well.
But just actually you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Exactly. Right. As he like tones down, like imagine if we had gotten a Batman movie in between Batman vs Superman and Justice League, where Batman is trying to figure out whether he can go back to the way he was before Batman vs Superman, before he can go back to being like the bloodthirsty.
Oh yeah.
You know, can he redeem himself? The Expendables storyline that you liked so much. Can you come back after you've killed so much? This is a Batman who has. And this is where I have an issue with Zack Snyder, because he was like, the holy rule of Batman is that he doesn't use guns and that he doesn't kill people, and I'm going to break that rule. He just got in trouble for saying that recently. And it's like, I agree with him. If you have a legacy character like this, you should be able to explore alternate versions of said character, as long as you can like tie it in and bring it back around at the end.
Not alternate versions, different aspects of his personality.
Well, if you've got a character who's adamant about not killing, exploring a version of that character that does kill and ruthlessly kills at that would be I say alternate version of it. It's a different take. It's not the norm.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I am looking at it. It's okay. Justice League. I liked it. He struggled with it. What do you think about Justice League?
Are you a Snyderverse fan? Do you want it restored? What's the?
Yeah, you know what?
Oh, he also Snyder really wanted that. Okay, this is actually the apocalypse sequences from Batman vs Superman.
Okay.
Like he actually tied that into his version of Justice League.
Okay.
Like by embracing Superman, bringing him back, like they prevent that type of thing, or they set that in motion. One of the two. There's just you could see these like there was a story here. And I believe that.
I believe that.
Forgot to mention that.
I believe that. I liked it.
I'm torn.
That's what I got.
I'm torn. What are your thoughts? Should we restore the Snyderverse, or should we let James Gunn do his thing?
Should he make me watch the 4-hour version?
Yes, he should.
Really?
Yes,
I won't. I am only going to do that if y'all say.
Comment down below if you want him to watch the Snyder Cut.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Pork Chops, Raisin Peaches.
And we'll see you next time.